Well, welcome back to another live stream. Looking for audio here. You double check this. It looks like the audio is good. Scared me there for a minute. Got multi-view back here. We're gonna hit record. I remembered, and we're gonna talk about the ATEMs tonight, the ATEM Mini Pro ISO and the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO, and talk about how do you choose between those two devices. We're also going to look at a new dolly that I purchased a little while back. So out of the box, we're not unboxing it, but we're going to unfold it, and we're going to take a look at that and talk about why I got that, why I added that to all the other stuff here for Life Journey Production Studio. So if you're new or you're watching for the very first time, you're not chatting with us, I do have subscribe only chat on tonight. So all you gotta do is subscribe. Within a minute, you can chat with us. We wanna invite you in. Then if you don't like the channel, you don't like the content, then unsubscribe. Either way, we are getting very close to 3,000 subscribers. So I wanna say thank you so very much. It may not seem a lot to some of you. Maybe others of you, it seems like a lot, but one way or the other, it is means a lot to me. So thank you very much. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking the videos. And I released a really kind of thorough video this last week. It's doing really well on YouTube, and that is a up close look at the ATEM Software Control Update 9.5. Also on a twist, 9.5.1, because they did do an update. They had some bug fixes. It has a firmware upgrade in it as well. So if you have not updated yet to version 9.5.1 of Blackmagic Design's ATEM Software Control, then I would recommend you do that. Then you need to also do a firmware update on your ATEMs. And obviously, that new version impacts all of my ATEMs. I have an ATEM Mini Pro. The only difference between the ATEM Mini Pro and the ATEM Mini Pro ISO is one major difference, and that is that the ATEM Mini Pro records all the tracks. It also makes a DaVinci Resolve folder that you can open up in DaVinci Resolve. You can download the free version, and then you could edit those ISO files in there. I'm not a DaVinci Resolve user. I do all my editing in Adobe Premiere Pro, but I have played around with DaVinci Resolve in the past. So the ISO models have ISO recording of each one of the inputs, plus the still images that you use from the media pool, all the audio files that you're recording inside your ISO track. So you get each of the inputs. So if it's an ISO ATEM Mini Pro ISO, then you're going to have 4 different camera inputs recorded. Even if you don't have anything on in them, they're going to record. So you're going to have a long black recording for any of the channels that you don't use. If you have an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO, then you're going to have 8 of those inputs recorded, plus the media pool, plus all the audio tracks for all 8 inputs. So keep that in mind. It's going to record a program file, and then you're going to have all the individual cameras. So if you want to edit it differently than you did live, you can do that with one of the ISO models. So we're going to talk about how in the world do you choose between those two models today. We're going to look at the cost of them right now if you were to purchase one brand new. We're going to look at the prices of that. We're going to talk about what the difference amount is. And then I have literally been scouring the Extreme model to kind of look at the hidden features, the obvious features. And so we're going to talk about those. I don't have enough time tonight to cover the whole difference between the ATEM Mini Pro ISO and the ATEM Extreme ISO, but I am studying. You're getting a little inside look tonight at what I'm planning to do. I'm planning to do it a complete class on the Extreme. I've been talking about it for the longest time. I started to record a couple times, and then I just felt like I needed to wait. I'm so glad I did, because now with that 9.5 update, there are some new features. There's some new things that we would talk about in that series that we wouldn't have talked about in the past. So I'm doing some research. I read through a majority of the Blackmagic Design Control ATEM Software Control manual today, and just kind of exploring some of the features, some of the things that I'm not using, and we're going to talk about those tonight. But first of all, I want to say hi in the chat. It is 5 after. Hopefully, people have been popping in. I did notice some people were here pretty early. So let's go ahead and turn chat on the air. And let's just go back here and see who popped in here early. There it goes. Hank says, hi, Keith, standing by for tonight's session from the rain-soaked Bluffton, South Carolina. There has been some local flooding, which made national coverage on MSNBC. Thankfully, our neighborhood was spared. That is really good news, Hank. And I did see you. You got the first seat tonight, so welcome. He went on to say this: flash flooding, cyclone warnings still in effect until tomorrow, but so far, so good. And so looks like you need to hunker down, Hank, and stay safe. So all those of you guys in the chat, send some love and goodwill towards Hank there in South Carolina, and all those storms just go around away from you, hopefully back out to the ocean. So no ships or anybody at shore is harmed by that. Grish is in the house. It's good to have you. Chio is in the house. If you could, the poll with been bigger if you included SDI and ACMI models. Yeah, I can't add any more options in the poll tonight. Hopefully you guys have seen the poll. I'm going to focus on the non-SDI models. I might do a new poll next week about the SDI models. But right now the question is, what Blackmagic switcher would you choose in 2024? And so that's just from your perspective. Right now we have 89% saying the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO, 11% saying the ATEM Mini Pro. None so far for the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, which is one of the ones that we're going to talk about tonight. So even though we're doing the poll already and it'll be up until the end of tonight's live stream, the good news is possibly by the time we're done tonight, some of you may want to change your vote and go back to the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, because with the 9.5.1 firmware update, there are some really cool features. We have already talked about it, but we're going to touch base on some of those tonight later. So I'll just close down the poll here on my screen, and it will stay up for the rest of the night. So make sure you respond to that. Chio, good to have you in the house again. And we already talked about your poll comment, but also sending prayers the way of those that are in the storm. And I'll take some of those prayers my way as well. Let's see here. We have Tony in the house from Quick Tech Solutions. And he says, stop and think, Hank, glad you're doing all right with the storm. It's heading our way overnight and tomorrow all day, slow moving, dumping 10 to 15 inches of rain. So we're going to send some prayers and push that storm away from Tony's house as well, and all your family and friends back out to sea, outside of the shipping lanes where it belongs. And so go ahead and give it a push with me. We'll all push the storm that way. Now, I'm thinking if I push it that way, I'm pushing it north towards Canada. So I'm going to push it out to sea over there by you guys. So, yeah, so Chio's got thunder outside his house. Chris says, full house indeed. Craig, it's great to have you tonight. Hi, Keith. We are trying to stay cool. 100 outside right now in Fort Worth. Well, Craig, I am going to be coming to your city. Let's see, Fort Worth. No, I'm not coming to your city. I may still be coming to your city. So we'll see how that goes. Shannon and I are going to be cruising out of Florida, and I always get Fort Worth and Fort Lauderdale, I think, is where the airport is we're landing in. But I do have friends that aren't far from that city you're in, and they've been begging us to visit on our way back from our cruise. But Shannon has already booked all of the days that we had available. She is a midwife and she's on call. And so there's about 10 days that she's not on call. We're doing an 8-day cruise in Florida. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll talk more about that before, and I'll talk a little bit about that after. But we'll be flying all the way to southern Florida, and hopefully there will be, in January, no weather issues down there. So good to have you, Craig. Maybe sometime I'll get down in the Fort Worth area. My grandmother is from that local area. She's passed away now, but great area. It's been like 107 in the Tri-Cities where I live in the last 12 days. I think my wife said it was like 103 a couple days ago. So it's crazy hot. TVJ, it's great to have you in the house. And as always, good to have you. I'll just say hi here before I respond to Chio. It's good to have you, Joe, in the house. And very awesome having you guys with me every week. I do most of my work now from inside the house. We drive about 36 minutes away from my house on Sundays now. So I get out on Sundays. I went to Pasco yesterday to have a late lunch, early dinner with a friend of mine from about 55 miles away. We take turns driving back and forth. So that was fun, but I don't get out of the house as much as I would like to. I'm not working on any outdoor projects right now. I have another tent event coming up at the end of September, which will keep me busy for about 10 days with sound. But right now, I don't have major stuff going on in July and August. Even my consulting has dropped down measurably. I do have a consult tomorrow morning, which will be a lot of fun, and catching back up with one of my clients. And so thank you guys so much for joining me. Chio says, I own the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, so that's why I voted for the Extreme ISO. Cool. I guess if you already have one, you're not going to buy another one in 2024 unless you have other uses for them. And we'll talk about that here real quickly. Tony says, thanks for the positive thoughts. And Craig says, sounds like lots of fun. Yeah, my wife and I did our first cruise on our 25th wedding anniversary year. It was a fall cruise, and our anniversary is in the middle of the summer. And we absolutely loved it. The cruise line was probably a little bit older demographic than we were necessarily completely comfortable with. And so we have tried some other cruise lines. We really have fallen in love with the Royal Caribbean, and we're going to do our favorite cruise again on the other side of the Caribbean. And so we save up for these cruises. My wife also has to take less clients, but we are having some doors open for her having some help. So hopefully my wife won't have to just shut down her business every time we go on vacation. Hopefully she'll have some help so that we can go on vacation. And then if someone has a baby, she has backup. But right now she has to cut out all the babies during that time. And so we have that 10-day window. It's going to be a lot of fun going on that cruise. Oh, wow. That is something we will all share. Jay is saying, asking for our prayers. My 99-year-old grandpa is in kidney failure. Wow. So, yeah, if you are like me and prayer is a part of your life, and if you were in my world, you would understand why. But just because crazy stuff happens around the Bennett family all the time, So we send our prayers up for your grandpa and Jay. And so 99, what an incredible landmark year. That's 1 from 100. In reality, we're 9 months in the womb. So I always cheat and say that my birthday comes earlier because we don't count those 9 months. It takes 12 months after you're born to have your first birthday. So I always tell Shannon, now I know why I felt like I was 40 before I was even near my 40th birthday. So say some prayers for those miraculous changed kidney issues for Jay's grandpa. So turns 100 in December. Well, happy birthday to him from me early. So we're just going to pray that that's going to be a celebration that everybody, including him, is going to be at, and we'll be able to talk about that in the future. That's my hope and my prayer. So we'll just push that kidney issue aside and ask heaven to send a couple new kidneys. And I can't imagine what my body's going to do as I get older. So I'm 63 years old, so the cat's out of the bag, and I'm trying to take good care of myself. Been stress eating a little bit, confession time, during this summer, only because there's just been some crazy things going on. But I thoroughly enjoy getting a chance to be in the studio, talking about tech and spending the evenings with you guys. So let's roll in. It's 1:15. I don't want to continue rambling here, but Jay's responding. Yeah, hopefully that everything is going to be fine. January, I do not think, is anywhere near hurricane seasons, but we'll see. We're going like the second week of January, and I will not be on the air then. I will be relaxing somewhere, hopefully in the Caribbean. Okay, so tonight's topics, if you jumped on late or if you're listening and you're not chatting with us, you can chat with us if you just hit the subscribe button. If you don't like the content, then just unsubscribe later. We do have lots of videos here. I try to focus as much as I can on my channel, helping other streamers, other people. Last week, we talked about lenses, and I wrote on one of my Facebook pages yesterday about aperture and why the f-stop number, the lower it is, it seems, well, just f-stop seems like they're backwards. So if you have an f2 lens, we talked about this last week, in reality, that's a wide open lens. And you would think that f22 would be a wide open lens and f2 would be a tiny, tiny little hole. But in reality, it's what f-stop is all about. So I wrote a little bit about that. Focus is not happening here tonight. What is the deal? Let's look at this. Autofocus off. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, I threw my hands up and my focus went crazy. Okay, so we're going to talk about that here shortly. That actually not lenses, but we're going to talk about what we should choose today. How do you make a choice between the ATEM Mini Pro ISO and the ATEM Extreme ISO? We're going to talk about some of the feature differences, and then we're going to roll back from that first and talk about this new tool I got. So I'm going to switch microphones here to my mobile mic. So now I should be on this microphone. So let me know if everything still sounds 5x5. I'm going to move this out of my way, make sure it's muted so we don't have dual audio. But this is my new dolly. And it's not like a dolly you're going to dress up like a little girl. I call it a hand truck, but officially, and the link is in the description below, but I needed something for my subwoofer because I can't move it by myself. And I wanted something that I could set it on, lean it up against the car, and in a pinch, slide it in. And so I did a lot of research, and I looked all over social media, and I found, and I have limited space. In fact, I didn't even know if I could get all my gear inside my SUV. I definitely can't now because I added another monitor. And when I went to the last outdoor event in Benton City, which is about 15 minutes away from my house, I made 2 trips. My first trip over, I had some basic things like a couple tables, a couple plastic chairs, and so I unloaded all that. And when I came back to load up my 3 Yamaha speakers, monitors, my 2 15-inch Yamaha speakers, my subwoofer, the stands. Luckily, my SUV has a compartment underneath the back area. I can put all the music stands. Even this will slide in there if I need it to. So I needed something super compact, but it also had to handle the kind of weight I was going to need. And so this literally is that compact, and it'll hold 330 pounds. And it has the ability to adjust the handles. These handles flip out. And so I'm going to get out and pop this open for you guys. Get up and pop it open. Make sure we still have a shot. And what you're supposed to do is just push this down with your foot, but I'm going to do it on the table. And as you do this, the wheels pop out. And then you can pull the handles out, and they come out at about that degree. And then you have adjustments here. I'll back up. I've got an adjustment here, and this will come all the way up. And pretty cool. It does extend higher. I just haven't figured out how to do it yet. But this is the height that I use it at. I'm pretty sure it telescopes up higher here, or maybe I have it all the way up. And then it comes with these bungee cords to tie around things. But in reality, this is a nice dolly. And you can see the links in the description. This is not sponsored, but I just loved how it was built. It's super lightweight. It's built out of aluminum. And it's got this nice tall part. So it's not short, like a lot of the hand trucks are about this short. This is nice and deep. And again, you can just grab it, fold it like that, bring this down, push in the little button right here, and pop the handles in, and this thing's ready to go. It's flat. Set it underneath that compartment or on top of everything in my SUV. And that is just something I wanted to talk about here on the channel. We just haven't had a chance to do it. So that gave me a chance to do that. So if you're looking for a dolly to have in your garage, you can slip it. I mean, because it folds up, it's really nice. I have it behind my freezer in my garage. So I just hold it back there. I put a lot of my mic stands back behind the freezer. It's pulled out. So there's about that much space behind my freezer, and it's one of those box type freezers. So I think it's like 4 feet wide and 2.5, 3 feet deep. So because that, it's not all the way back, and I can just store things behind it. So I have a bunch of things behind that, and now I have the ability to save my back at 63 years old. And so I used it at the last event. Every one of those 15-inch speakers came out on the hand truck, couple monitors at a time. And again, now I have 4 12-inch Yamaha monitors, 2 15-inch Yamaha speakers. They're all powered, so they're heavy because they have amps in it. And now I have the 18-inch sub. Now, I was going to look at this because I'm sure you guys are curious as I am. Let me do this. Yamaha 18-inch sub. Let me find the specs on my sub. Am I going to find it here quickly? That's the passive version. I don't want the passive version. Where is the... Stand by. Got to be here somewhere. They make this sub with Dante and without Dante. It's $16.99 without Dante. It's $18.99 with Dante. Let's do this. Let's go camera 3. Did it work? Is my macros not working tonight? What's the story? Let's try this again. Me and my laptop. That one's working. Sorry about keeping you guys hanging. Again, I'm not promoting this channel. I'm just looking for the weight of this speaker. £107. So, again, the Dolly will do 330 pounds. I just wanted something heavy duty in case I have to move a refrigerator or something like that. I would probably rent a Dolly if I was going to do that, but it's really cool that I have this tool now. It pays off big dividends on the back, moving things out. Plus, I like the size of the wheels. They're good size wheels. You can see right here. So I even used that on the ground, and it worked great. And it's got some anti-skid here on the base. Here's the other side of it. And again, I'll open this up again. Whack myself in the face. So it's got a nice anti-skid and just really good quality stand. That'll be my backdrop for the rest of the night here. There you go. Let's not put that there. Let's put this down here. So that is the Dolly. I have some specs I'm going to throw up here on the screen. Let's do that this way. Me and the laptop. And I'm going to change what's in Super Source tonight, which is one of the things that sets the Extreme apart from the non-Extreme models. So box 2 here, we are going to do, this is going to look silly here for a minute, but I'm going to drop this in here. So here is, turn that key off. Here next to me is the 2-level telescoping handle. And so you can see how tall it gets and gives you all the dimensions. I have another graphic here showing it hauling a box, which was in my still image tonight. And then this was the kind of the online sales pitch that caught my attention. Why choose our Dolly cart? And there you go. Again, the link is in description. You guys can take a look at that if you decide you want to get that. It is up to you, but I really have enjoyed it. I've already used it, so it's passed the test, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So don't want to spend a bunch of time tonight on the Dolly, but I like to add those fun new things to our live stream. So in the next hour, I want to cover a number of things that I think will help us make a decision between the two devices we're going to talk about tonight. Let's do this one more time here. I should have just made a macro tonight for this. I apologize. I did not. But we'll just change box 2 again. I should have just left this in super source. And let me drop this in here and turn the key off the air. So the ATEM Mini Pro ISO is the first of these two devices I want to talk about tonight. I wanted this picture up while we're chatting just a little bit about it because I want to kind of digest some of the major differences. I think most of the people on the channel tonight know a lot of the major differences. So I'm not going to talk a lot about the buttons on the front, though there are drastic differences between the Extreme ISO, which is right there on the screen, and the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. The pictures aren't the same size because the ATEM Mini is smaller, so it's easier for us to get closer up to that. But the Extreme has some advantages as well. But one of the first things I wanted to talk about is these two things. There is the price of a ATEM Mini Pro ISO as of today from B&H Photo. Again, this is not sponsored by them, but that's their price. That is the price for ATEM Mini Pro ISO. And then if you decided and you get ready for this, that's just under $500. And if you go for a Extreme ISO, it's just under $1,300. So that is a big difference. In fact, if I did my math correctly, that's 500 to 1,000, 300 to 1,300. So $500, $600, $700, $800 difference. So the fact that you can go pick up an ATEM Mini Pro ISO for $495, and if you're going to get an Extreme ISO, you're going to be putting out $1,295. Now, I have two Extreme ISOs in my studio. The second one I actually purchased from one of the guys that used to be on the live stream occasionally. We did a Zoom free consult and got a chance to talk. I don't think he ever became officially a client, but he was doing a talk show. Actually, I think I did. I think I did 90 days with him, and he asked me when he was selling his, not doing that podcast anymore, selling his Extreme ISO and his Rodecaster Pro 2, if I would be interested, and I was. I picked them both up. And obviously, there's other models. They were in tonight's poll, and you can still answer the poll. It's up in the chat. Which one of these four devices would you buy in 2024? Here's the price difference between buying a ATEM Mini Extreme. It does not record ISO tracks, but it has all the other features that you're going to find in an Extreme. But that's the difference. So you're going to pay basically $300 more for that. So you're going from $500 for an ATEM Mini Pro ISO. You can buy an ATEM Mini Pro for even less. You're jumping up, if you go just to the Extreme, to $1,000, which is basically double. And then $300, that's $800 more if you want to go to Extreme ISO. So those are the real numbers about these two devices. So as you look at the ATEM Mini Pro ISO and you look at the ATEM Extreme ISO, one of the first things we have to kind of compare, how do you make a decision on which one to buy in 2024? You have to think about your budget, and you got to think about how much money it's going to cost. Because if you think about, if I had paid full price, which I did for my first one, I'm investing over $2,000 in the two ATEMs in my studio, and I paid, I think, $495 for my ATEM Mini Pro. Now you can buy an ATEM Mini Pro ISO for that amount of money, and you can buy a Pro for less than that. It may have been even $595. I don't remember, but if you guys remember how much they sold for in the very beginning, let me know. So as we're talking about how do you make a decision between a ATEM Mini Pro ISO and ATEM Extreme ISO, the first order of business is to look at the cost. And as I sold for a living for a number of years, I've often said this. Let me change this way so I don't lose that camera. setup. Oh, great. Good night. I'll have to put my logo back in there. And I'm doing everything manually from the ATEM Software Control tonight because I didn't set up macros to do the little slideshow in the two boxes. So let me just say this. Money makes a difference. And as I sold for a living, is this out of focus again? Can't be my glasses. What is going on with my camera tonight? It's like it's sticking. So that lens, I don't know what the deal is. So to move forward, value has to equal cost. And that is something you learn very early in your sales career, that if you're talking to a client and you're trying to convince them that the product that you're showing them is worth the price you're asking, you need to be able to show them the value. So what do you get if you go from an ATEM Mini Pro ISO to an ATEM Extreme ISO? Is there enough value there? How are we going to overcome $800, right? So think about, you're standing in front of that counter at B&H and you're going to put $500 bills, maybe a few more dollars than that for tax if you're buying an ATEM Mini Pro ISO, and you're going to have to take out $800 more plus even more tax if you decide to buy an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. So you need to be able to see the value. So we're going to talk just a little bit tonight about where that value is. And that's how I really wanted to approach tonight. I want to show you enough value if you're going to decide to go to an Extreme ISO. And if you don't see the value, then that should help you make a decision. So if you're watching this video and you already have an ATEM Mini Pro, ATEM Mini Pro ISO, this is not about should you update from the Pro to the ISO. This is really about, if you were pulling the trigger today, would you buy a ATEM Mini Pro ISO or an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO? And that's what I really want to talk about. We're going to talk about it from the dollars and cents. So let me just stop here for a second. And it looks like a bunch of chat things are happening. So let me put chat back on the air and just see. NDQ, welcome to tonight's live stream. I don't think I said hi to you earlier. It says, just want to know how to achieve an aerial show with one PTZ camera. I only got center shot. If there's a way to make that center shot into an aerial view, then, oh my, that's a magnificent thing. So now back to the ATEM topics. So I don't use PTZ cameras. And so if anybody wants to chime in the chat tonight to respond to ND, then that's great. But again, I wanted to welcome you into the chat. Chris says he's in South Carolina, or I'm going to South Carolina in October, hoping for no hurricanes. January is safe, Tony says, thanking us for the prayers. Hurricane season usually lasts till November. That's the word that I got as well. My new dolly, laugh out loud, Ratso's wife. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure Ratso would go for that aluminum dolly, but that's a cute comment, Joe. Chio Walker, the last lightning strikes sound remarkably close. Yeah, you're supposed to count 1,001. I've had lightning strike when I lived in Pennsylvania where I didn't even get the out of my mouth. So the lightning was right out my door. Chio ordered his ATEM from B&H because delivery is usually 1 or 2 business days because of how close they are to me. Well, if you're close, it's even better to get to drive there. There is a stream a while back that Tony and Joe did where they went to B&H. That was really cool. So go over there and maybe Joe and Tony can give you guys instructions on how to see that. That was fun to see those two guys go to B&H. And one of these days when I get over to New York City, I am going to check it out. Okay. Downstream key chat off the air. Upstream key off the air. Let's change back to this. And let me start this value proposition. Where are we going to find this value money. What is that doing to me? So that's the back of an ATEM Mini Pro, ISO, regular ATEM Mini. They have the same back. There's two mic inputs. They're 3.5 millimeter stereo inputs. You can split those to two mono tracks inside the ATEM software control, which is really cool. You can add phantom power or not phantom power to those plugins. In fact, in reality, there's a couple different voltages that you can send to those. And then you have input 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have a HDMI output. That's for multi-view. But if you look at the front of a ATEM Mini, you'll see on the far right-hand side, right above the FTB button, which stands for fade to black. So you push that button, the screen goes black. I'll show you that. That's what happens when you hit the fade to black button. I push that on my extreme, so you get black. But above that, you can see what I call a little mini matrix, and there are a number of choices there. You have on the ATEM Mini Pro, which I have one on my desk, not an ISO. You have 1, 2, 3, and 4, which represent the 4 HDMI inputs. Again, those are right here on the back. You see they're labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you push those buttons, that HDMI output that's on the back of the ATEM Mini Pro will then show you those inputs. So you push 1, you'll have camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, camera 4, and then also you have multi-view. So multi-view is going to show you multi-view. So again, that's a great feature. I have multi-view here behind me. If we cut back to camera 2, I've got multi-view. What in the world? I am having trouble with this key. Stop that. Right behind me, I have multi-view. Now, this is the multi-view layout for an extreme, but there's also a multi-view available that comes out of the ATEM Mini Pro. So that shouldn't turn that logo on again. So those are the buttons. So you can have program out. So if you just wanted to monitor your program, you can. If you just want to see multi-view out of that HDMI output, and again, that HDMI output's right here on the back. What did I do here? Right there on the back, and you can see it says HDMI out. Next to that is a USB-C port. So you can record to a SSD drive, or you can use that as a webcam out. Now, one of the things that has changed in the version 9.5, and I just did a video on it a few weeks ago in the live stream, I think 3 weeks ago. I also did a thorough look at that in my 9.5.1 video that released this week. So you can check that out here on the site if you haven't watched that yet. But now you're able to have more than just program coming out of the USB-C port. So there you go. You've gotten more value out of your ATEM Mini Pro, ATEM Mini Pro ISO, including the old ATEM Mini, which they don't make anymore. They make an SDI model, but they don't make the old HDMI non-streaming version or non-recording version. So you can come out of the USB-C port and you can plug it in and record to it, or you can choose not to record to it, and then you can plug it into your PC or your Mac and use it as a webcam. You used to only get program, and what you're seeing right now is my program view. But what if you wanted them to see a different view, like multi-view? Now you can send multi-view out of your ATEM. I'll show you guys this right now. Let me open up my control software here. We're going to bring it over. Let me show this on the screen. We will go up here and connect to my ATEM Mini Pro. Again, I'm showing you the value. So you've added value to the ATEM Minis, the whole line. So you go up here to outputs now, and you have a choice of the HDMI output. There's camera 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you have multi-view, program, and you have one extra one from in here because you have multi-view, program, and preview, where if you're on the front of your ATEM buttons, you have camera 1, 2, 3, and 4, and multi-view and program. You do not have this preview choice. So the control software gives you even more choices coming out of your HDMI out. But now you have 3 options to come out of your webcam out. You have multi-view, program, and preview. And I illustrated how you could have program go into a confidence monitor, and then you could use OBS and set your USB-C output to multi-view, and you could use OBS to bring the multi-view in, or any other software that will bring in a webcam. So set your webcam to multi-view, bring it in, and now you have program on your confidence monitor out of your ATEM Mini Pro ISO. And then you have multi-view on your laptop or your Macintosh screen using OBS. So that is really cool. It does add great value. Connect back to my ATEM. Well, I'm going to go to my ISO for right now. Okay, a couple more things I want to talk about. So that is on the ATEM Mini Pro. Let's go back in here and change back to me and a, let's just go like this. Multi super source is already there, so I'll just go back like this. I'll set this up. Again, that off. Box 2. Media player. So I've talked a lot about all the things that I have surrounding in my studio, other tools that I've used with my ATEM Mini Pro. I'm now using most all of these tools with my Extreme ISO. So I could see the value, and that's why I updated. I kept my ATEM Mini Pro, but I still have access to those. So as you finish looking at the back of the ATEM Mini Pro, you then, after the USB-C port, you have a network input, and that's so that you can stream now from the device. You can control it over that Ethernet port by using the ATEM control software. Most everybody, I think, here on the channel knows what the control software looks like, but just for kicks and giggles, there you go. That's the control software for an Extreme. And I just showed you guys the control software layout for an ATEM Mini Pro, ATEM Mini Pro ISO. It looks like this. So you have 4 inputs if you're using it for an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. And so here's the other thing that we'll talk about is not just the inputs that increase, but the other things that increase when you bump up to a Extreme ISO. So we'll reconnect to that. And so I can control all 3 of those from this laptop, or I could have the control software opened up from my PC for another ATEM and then just switch back and forth to that mouse or this mouse, which I do almost every time I'm live. But back into this, let's go ATEM Mini one more time. And let's switch box 2 to a media player. So the ATEM Mini Pro has one more port on the back, and that is the power port. And so again, most of them came with a screw-in power plug-in. Mine did not. My original ATEM Mini Pro came with one that doesn't have the screw adapter on it. So you got to be careful because you could pull it out. So you can live stream from an ATEM Mini Pro. You can record in the ISO all 4 of those inputs. It will record the media pool things that you use. Like I've used some pictures tonight. They would all be in a folder. And we're going to look at that folder here tonight in the Extreme version of it so you can see what the ISO folder looks like. But that's what you have. You have 2 mic inputs, 4 HDMI inputs, Then you have one HDMI output, which can be multi-view, preview, program. On the front of your ATEM, you can change between 1, 2, 3, and 4 inputs and multi-view and program. And if you go in the control software, you can then show preview out of the web USB-C. And then you can also record. So the USB-C port has dual use, and we're going to talk about the Extreme as well. And then you have a power supply. So you have all of the buttons on the front, and you can see on the top right, you can use it to hit a record button, and that would record in the ISO all the tracks if you have ISO recording turned on, and that's a setting under the output page. So you can record just the program in an ISO if you want to, or you can record the program output and all of the tracks in the ISO versions if you want. So that's up to you. It will not make a folder if you only set it to record the program. It'll act just like an ATEM Mini Pro, like I have on my desk. But if you click that little icon, and I might as well show you guys where that's at, connect ATEM Mini Pro. And we'll default back to this look. If I go into the switcher page and I go up here to output, let me just double check this before I show it. Make sure there's no streaming keys on here. Switch back here. So right down here, you're going to have a little icon that you click on. Now, this is an ATEM Mini Pro, so I don't have that option. But if you have an ISO, there's a little icon down here that you can click on that lets you set it for ISO tracks. I'll show you what it looks like in my second ISO model here. Double check here real quick. No keys revealed. So if I scroll down here, you can see right here, I have ISO tracks clicked. If I turn it off, it will only do the program. If I turn it on, it's going to do ISO tracks. And it even says ISO stop, so you know you're stopping all your ISO track recordings. And if you turn that little box off, the little check mark, then you're only going to be stopping a program recording. So again, an ATEM Mini Pro and ATEM Extreme ISO, ATEM Mini Pro ISO and an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO can act like a regular Extreme or a regular Pro by just turning off ISO recordings on and off. So it is a great extra feature. You just have to ask yourself if it's worth $300 if you buy an Extreme ISO over an Extreme, or if it's worth $100 more if you're buying an ATEM Mini Pro or ATEM Mini Pro ISO. Okay, so one last thing we want to talk about the inputs. We're going to go back and look now at the back of the Extreme. And trust me, I'm going somewhere. I know it's almost 5 till, but let's get to this because I want to show you the value. We've seen the ATEM Mini Pro. We've talked about what an ISO will do. We've given you a basic overview of it. Now I want to talk about the inputs on the back of the ISO. So let's set up box number 2. Again, turn the key off. Let's drop the Extreme in here. And let's go to Super Source. I'm sorry this is white, but you can see it here. So on the back of the Extreme, you have one extra input at the very beginning, and that is a headphone out. In fact, I have my headphones right here. If I put my headphones on, I can actually hear this mic in my headphones. So you actually get a headphone output if you buy an Extreme or an Extreme ISO. So if that has value, there's one thing. Now, if we continue over, you have the same 2 mic inputs. They're stereo 3.5. They can be mono. You can split them into mono tracks inside the ATEM Software Control, or you can leave them stereo tracks. And again, you have all kinds of effects available. You have delay, lip sync delay on both of those in the ATEM Extreme ISO as well as the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. So you can sync up your lips. If your audio is getting to the audience faster than your video, you can slow down how many frames you want up to 8 frames. So $800 more for an Extreme over an ATEM Mini Pro ISO. And you have those extra 8 frames of delay in both of them. So 8 is one of those numbers tonight we're going to have to search for value. So now we're going to start from there. So 2 mic tracks, 1 headphone track. Also, you have buttons on the front of the ATEM to control the headphones. If you look on the front of the Extreme, the headphones is the 3rd section on the top left. So you have mic 1, mic 2, and then you have the headphones. So you get headphones controls on the back of, or on the top face of the Extreme. You also get the grayed out software in the ATEM Software Control is now available for headphones. And so that's really cool. And you can solo in your headphones every single input track. So that's cool, or the stereo track. And you have volume control inside the ATEM Software Control as well. So now we're going to look at the inputs. You have 8 HDMI inputs. So instead of 4, now you have 8. So if you have more inputs, like let's say you want to add a HyperDeck and have fill and key, that takes 2. 2 HyperDecks with fill and key would take 4. And let's say you want to have 4 cameras. So you want to have 4 different views. Like a lot of podcasts have more than 4 cameras. So they'll have a close-up on guest 1, close-up on guest 2. They'll have a wide shot. They'll have a wide on 1, a wide on 2. Then they'll have some other cameras. So you may need a whole ATEM Extreme and Extreme ISO if you want to record all of the inputs and edit later. You may need that many inputs if you're doing a high-end broadcast or a high-end podcast. So again, 8 HDMI inputs. Now let's come over to the HDMI outputs. Now you have 2 HDMI outputs. Why is that important? It gives you one that you can send whatever you want to a confidence monitor. It could be a multi-view monitor. It could be a projector at the head of the stage. It could be a back of stage monitor that you want to put lyrics up. You may want to split that up to the front monitors and the back monitor. Or maybe you want more outputs than that. Then you might want to look at the SDI models, because the SDI ATEM Mini Pro SDI ISO version has 2 SDI outs, and the SDI model of the Extreme ISO has 4 SDI outs. But again, you have to convert all those SDIs to HDMI or HDMI to SDI, and that just doesn't interest me. That's why I don't own any of the SDI models, including the higher end 2ME and 4MEs, because I don't have cameras with SDI and I just don't want to convert them. So again, 8 inputs, 2 HDMI outputs, and you can send whatever you want to those inputs. So I think that's pretty important. And then let's talk about, well, let's go back here real quick after I do this. So real quickly, if you go to the outputs on an ISO, you can see under the webcam output, you don't just have preview and program and multi-view like you only have available to send through your USB-C port in the ATEM Mini Pro ISO. You now have all of these options. You can just send a black signal to it. You can send all of the 8 inputs. You can send color 1, color 2, whatever colors you want to make in the color generator. And that's found right up here on the top right. You can make whatever colors you want. You have 2 colors that can be stored at any one time. And I can send those colors out of my webcam output. I can send my HyperDeck out of channel 7 and 8 to that in a Zoom call now or whatever. I could just play something from my HyperDeck directly from the webcam out. I have the color bars, color 1, color 2, media player 1, media player 2, both fill and key. I have super source, as also I can send out the webcam, which is really cool. If you go up here to output 1, you also can send super source, which is really cool, out the HDMI 1 and HDMI 2 port. But the webcam outputs in the new 9.51 update. It's also in 9.5. Again, you have to do the software control update and do the firmware update. And I shared in my video that launched this last 3 or 4 days on the channel how to do that firmware update. It's inside that video. There's chapter markers, so you can go and see that. But you have all of these options to go out of that HDMI out. So that is really, really cool. So now we're going to go back into the back to finish this up. So if 4 extra HDMI inputs doesn't give you the value that you're looking for, if an extra HDMI output doesn't give you the value you're looking for, maybe having all of those options out of the back through the USB-C port gives you the option, and that's a single USB-C port. It's port number 2, which is your webcam. I think it might be port number 1. I may have that wrong, but let me change what's in box 2 here again. And let's finish up the tour of the back of this. Okay, now we're ready to pop SuperSource up here on the screen. So now you have 2 USB-C ports. Why is that important? Now you can actually record to 2 of these discs. I'm going to demo this right now. You can see right now I'm only recording to 1 disc. But what happens if instead of using USB-C out number 2, my camera did its thing again. Why are you doing that? Let's plug this in and let's watch what happens. I'm going to plug this into the other USB-C port. And now watch. I have a Extreme SDI number 2, and I could switch to it right now, and they'll flip over. So if I took this out and was doing a wedding and I needed to have a long recording or was doing an event, I can plug into it now 2 USB-C drives, SSD drives, and now I have drive 1 and drive 2 ready. It tells me how much time I have left on my recording. It tells me how many gigabytes that is. It tells me where I'm at, how close I am to filled. The one I'm recording to is red. The one I'm not recording to is white. And I could actually, in a Extreme, I can have 2 discs to record to, or record to 1 disc and use the other one as a webcam. So now, if those USB-C ports don't create enough value, you have 4 HDMI inputs, you have 2 HDMI outputs that you can send pretty much anything to them. You now have 2 USB-C ports. 1 could be recorded to, or 2 could be recorded to. 1 could be a webcam while you're recording to the other one, or you could just leave one of them empty and always have one of them plugged in as a webcam and only use it to live stream through OBS or other computer software using the webcam out. But again, now you could send out of that webcam out just your intro video. So you could be doing anything you want on your Extreme ISO in your studio or your device, while only the people on your stream using your computer, your Macintosh software streaming from it, doing all the encoding, all that, they would only be seeing your HyperDeck. They wouldn't be able to see anything that you were switching inside your ATEM, inside the studio while you're getting ready to go live. And when you're ready to go live, all you would do is switch the webcam out from being your HyperDeck out or your media still, whatever you had it set for, back to program, and now your live audience would be seeing programs. So I love that feature. I believe that the USB-C out adds a lot of value. Now, is there any other updates in the 595.1 or 9.5.1? Yeah, there is. You have multi-view options. You can now set your multi-view layout. Let's look at this real quick. I can go in my multi-view layout, and now I can actually choose my webcam as an input. Now, this is only available in the Extreme. If you have an ATEM Mini Pro ISO or ATEM Mini Pro or just a regular ATEM Mini, even the SDI model, you can't change any of the sources for the boxes in multi-view. You can only do that in an Extreme. So maybe that adds value. And I don't have to just have the traditional multi-view layout of an ATEM where you have preview, program, then you have your 4 inputs, and then you have a couple other areas to see the audio levels, to be able to see the recording, be able to see your media player. All of those choices are stagnant. You can change some features on them now. You can turn the fonts on and off. You can change the borders on and off. You can turn the meters on and off. You can even put frame guides inside an ATEM Mini Pro. But you can't change the different boxes, their sources. So now I can have a webcam box available in my multi-view at all time. So if I ever switch this and I forget, and no one in Zoom can see anything else but what I have my webcam out set for, I can now look up at my multi-view and see it set for program right now in my multi-view, which is a real cool feature. So multi-view has some additions. They've also added value. Let's go to connections. Let's go to my ATEM Mini Pro. This is added value just from the firmware update. Not only in the ATEM Mini Pro, like I said, can you go into the multi-view settings and change the fonts on and off the screen. You can change guides on and off. The guides are all on right now. I can turn them all off. I can also go up here and turn the borders off and on in my multi-view. I can turn the frame guides all on or all off. The audio meters all on or all off, or individual audio meters on the first 4 inputs of my ATEM Mini Pro. And I can also change the color of the borders right here and make it whatever color I want. That's added value to your devices that you already own. If you own an Extreme or you own an ATEM Mini Pro ISO, you get those values already. And then over in the output page, if you go down here, you have the ability to sync with Blackmagic Cloud now. So you can literally sync your ATEM recordings with the Blackmagic Cloud. You can have it automatically integrate with DaVinci Resolve. So you can have a DaVinci Resolve project open. If you go into DaVinci Resolve and you enable what is that feature called? Allow remote camera access when you go into this icon down here. So if I turn it on right here and I go log in, it opens up this box to log into my cloud account. Once you're logged in, and I don't have a cloud account, so I can't demo this. Once you log in, then you're going to have an option for some more choices of what you want it to do, where you want it to go. And then you would go in DaVinci Resolve and you would allow a remote camera. And so that remote camera then could feed, which would be your ATEM, all those ISO tracks would be feeding into your DaVinci Resolve project. So you could have someone editing for you live as you're live, which would be really cool. So as soon as your show is over, you could be playing things back immediately. Like let's say you're broadcasting a hockey game and you want to post it immediately after. You could literally have that completely edited within minutes because you've been having someone work on it the whole time the game's been live. And you can also use these features for instant replay because, again, it's going to be slowly feeding that depending on how fast your network is. It's going to be slowly feeding that into your cloud storage if you have cloud storage, or your hard drive if you set it up that way. And then the faster it feeds in, the faster you could do some replays right in the middle of your live show. So if I was feeding right now in the DaVinci Resolve, I could pick a clip in DaVinci Resolve from earlier in my live stream and then play it back for you, slow-mo or however, right inside DaVinci Resolve. And they even make a new MIDI player that you can buy from Blackmagic Design now to help make that happen faster. So again, new features over there inside, and there's even more. I'm not going to talk about all those tonight. So not only do you have 4 extra HDMI inputs, not only do you have an extra USB-C port that you can use now, and you can record up to 2 discs, you also have a network port. You also have a headphone out in an Extreme ISO. It records all the ISO tracks just like the ATEM Mini Pro ISO would, but you also get some added value in the firmware updates that none of us had before. I'm gonna fire this camera if it doesn't work. My lens keeps sleeping on me. So that is kind of an overview. Let me make sure I covered all of the features. Let's go back into my other ATEM. Finish this up. So now you have the two USB-C ports, the Ethernet port, and then you have a power port. So that is just the back of this device. And then you get more intuitive control on the front. You have an extra matrix on the top, which lets you change. If you had your Luma key live, you would be able to change the inputs on the top row. So if your Luma key was assigned to your media player 1, and for some reason you wanted to have camera 1 in your Luma key, you can change that with the matrix on the top. So not only do you have the headphone controls now, volume control, you also have in the center section camera control. If you have Blackmagic design cameras, you have access to all of these features: gain, focus, your black levels. You also have shutter, speed. All of those can be controlled, and you can also correct color in your Blackmagic design cameras, so you can check the brochure as well as the PDF manual for the Blackmagic design devices to know how to use the camera controls. But the Extreme has all those buttons. You still have audio buttons, audio follow video, and all that, but you can see you have 8 buttons now instead of 4. Then you also have 2 media players. So the ATEM Mini Pro has 1 media player, but if you look at my media player here, you can see I have 2 media players. So I have my background live behind my super source, and I have my Extreme up there as well. So I can cut to either one of those right now. I can literally push the buttons on the front of my Extreme, and I can cut to media player 1, or I can cut to media player 2, which is the background, or I can cut back to super source, literally with the buttons on the front of my Extreme. Now, you can do the one media player on the front of your ATEM. It's called a still button instead of a media 1 and media 2 button. So you have a still button on the front of the ATEM Mini Pro, but now you have 2 media players inside the Extreme. And then the last couple of things I wanted to talk about is that you have 4 upstream keys instead of 1. You have 2 DVEs, which is basically picture-in-picture. And then even on the front of the Extreme, you have this very interesting logo button. So let's go back to me and a logo, and I'm going to make camera 2 or 1 and ready right here. And I'm going to go into my DVE here. Down into my transitions. And now with my DVE on, what's it assigned to? Media player 2. Let me drop this graphic in. I created this for us tonight. You now have this wipe feature available. And there's a button to change its source right on the front of your Extreme. So you don't have to go into the software. If I wanted to change that source, let's turn my logo off so you guys will see this happen. So I'm going to go up here, click on the logo button, and it's assigned to media player 1 right now. Let's go ahead and assign it to media player 2 right now. Let's assign it to media player 1. Now I'm transitioning using a logo, and I can go back to media player 2. And now I'm transitioning between these two cameras. And yes, this camera right here is too dark. I have to change the lights for that. But I have this transition available, and that's very simply right here. It's the DVE transition, and it's under transitions right here. You can see that you have the ability right here to use the DVE transition, and then you have to load in a graphic. Here is my graphic right here. So you have to load that in. We're going to lose the background behind me. It's going to become that graphic. And then you switch back over to two camera inputs. So let's switch back over here. And then you just simply wipe back and forth using that graphic. So let's put my logo back in where it belongs and the background back in where it belongs. And now we can cut back to super source. And I'm transitioning using that big background. Watch that again. I'm doing that side to side wipe with a full size graphic, which is the background for my super source. But having two media players lets me have the graphic back there. And then if I'm not in super source, I can use the other media player to be able to do those type of effects. So again, you're limited with an ATEM Mini Pro ISO. You're not as limited in an Extreme because you have two media players. Now, you have to have a HyperDeck to play back videos. So all I have is still images. I have no ability to play back videos unless I use a HyperDeck. And I have a HyperDeck in my studio. You guys are fully aware of that. So if I go into Super Source right here and I'll change box 2 to my HyperDeck, we'll queue up something different right now. What do we got in here? There is my subscribe logo. There is my transition stinger. And there is my outro video. And we'll save that for later. So if you do want to use Super Source, which we're going to finish up with now, talking about Super Source. Super Source is the ability to have multiple boxes on the air at the same time. I have box right now 3 and 4 off the air. Let's bring them on the air. Let's put things in box 3 and 4. So let's go ahead and put Super Source in one of them. In box 4, let's go ahead and put camera 3 in there. So now I can have 4 boxes on the screen. I can still have my logo on the air, and I can have whatever I want in the background. I could even have the background be a video that's moving if I wanted to. So again, Super Source is only available in the Extreme. And if you have an Extreme ISO, if you want to record Super Source, you're going to have to come out of one of those HDMIs and back in, because recording Super Source is not one of the options in the ISO Extreme model. So there you go. Super Source is now an option. You can have 4 boxes on the screen, and you even have a really cool feature on this device. Let's turn Super Source off. I'll go back to my background. If I push the button on the front of the ATEM that says, let me turn this off. It says picture in picture. I have the ability, let's see what's going on here. See if I can get this to work. Go back to camera 2, get out of DVE. That's what it wouldn't work. Let me try this again. There we go. You can put these 2 boxes. So I could choose my background. This is also available on the front of the Extreme. You have the normal picture-in-picture versions. You can have, let me change what's in the main box here for key 1. Let's change that to camera 3. So you can move this around the screen like normal, But now you have the ability to do a one box layout. And then if you wanted to bring a guest in, you have another one. So I could be just me talking to the camera, this camera right here. And I could then bring a guest on the air in that box. And I can do the border or not do the border because these are my 2 DVEs. So in the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, you only have one DVE, one picture-in-picture. So you can use it for that stinger effect, which is a DV effect, swiping across the screen, or you can use it for a picture-in-picture. But in this Extreme ISO, you have 2 DVEs and a button on the front to turn just this one on or both of them on, which is really a cool button pushing thing on the front of the ATEM. If you had this set up, and this is input number 2 right here with me looking at you, and this one right here is input number 1. So if you have your laptop with your guest in number 2, and you have your input number 1 being your main camera, then these will be automatically available to you. This will be just you looking at the camera, and then when you pop on this button, it'll be your guest. And they could be waiting in the wings. If you wanted to, you could make a macro to fly this view from full screen back, but you have these buttons on the front of your ATEM Extreme and your Extreme ISOs because now you have 2 DVEs. So there's so many features packed in the Extreme ISO. I wonder what you would get now. Did I show you $800 of value tonight between the two? Let's go back into the chat and let's just see. Currency are then ATEM displaying on screens. Not sure what the dollar amounts meant, but Chio says it's 2 hours to get to B&H. Chio, if you do more streaming, you're saying you're going to get an Extreme. Hopefully, I showed you the value. You can get the Extreme or the Extreme ISO. So if you only want to spend $1,000 or $500 extra over an ATEM Mini Pro ISO, you can get an Extreme, but it will only record the program out. It won't be able to do most of those other ISO features, but it will do all the other things that I demoed tonight. The 2 USB-C is a major for me. Yeah, I love that as well. Good to have you, Ernesto. Sorry you missed out earlier, but you can go back and watch it. I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate you catching up. Chio says, I could get DaVinci Replay to work. I couldn't get it. It seems you need to have Ultra Studio to make it work. Instant Replay, going back through the new media player or the Ultra Studio, because there's a new media player 10G, and that's for 10G fast networking. That's an Ultra Studio on steroids. But yeah, the Ultra Studios through Thunderbolt should be able to play back, but you could use your laptop from DaVinci Resolve to play back into your ATEM. You should be able to set that up. I've never tested it. I've never tried it. I'm pretty sure Aaron Parecki did that. Maybe he was using an Ultra Studio, but I'm not quite sure. Good to have you here tonight, Joe. Sorry you have to go, but thank you for joining us. I don't know when, how long ago you wrote that. So again, we're going to wrap it up tonight at 5:30. So if you can hang tight for just a few more minutes, any feature that you can think of in the Extreme ISO that I did not cover. Now, there are some I didn't cover, but I try to cover most of the main ones. So there are some settings and different things that you can change. Some of those new features are available because of the firmware update. It's not available for the old ATEM Mini, but that 9.5 firmware update applies to the ATEM Mini Pro, the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, the ATEM Mini Pro SDI ISO, the other SDI Pro, the Extreme ISO, and the Extreme SDI ISO. All of those got that 9.5 update with the webcam features, with the streaming to your cloud, all that stuff, integrating with DaVinci Resolve. All of those new features are available. There's a couple things in the HyperDeck pages that were updated, which I haven't talked about tonight, but I'll just hit on them real quickly. Under HyperDecks, under system settings, you do have these new icons that automatically populate. So it automatically detects if you have these HyperDecks. I've had no disconnect issues. So everybody's always said it was a static IP issue, but the 9.5 firmware update is now detecting what kind of HyperDeck you have. So they made a change in the firmware. So it's constantly communicating with the HyperDecks. And because of that, I never have had a disconnect problem since I updated to the new software control 9.5. And if you get to 9.51 and do the firmware update, you get rid of some bugs. So that's really cool. Plus you have 3 pages of HyperDecks now, but I don't have enough HyperDecks to test to see if I can hook up 10 HyperDecks now or not. I know I can do 4 because I do have a Raspberry Pi right here that has a HyperDeck emulator program called Playout B that's inside it. Version 2 is not available yet for the Raspberry Pi, but it is available for Mac and PC, so iOS and Windows. But I'm waiting for the Raspberry Pi version of that HyperDeck emulator. So you could get a Raspberry Pi and use it as a HyperDeck. It will not do fill and key. So if you want to do fill and key, you can't do it from a Raspberry Pi, but you could use this as a HyperDeck for playing back videos. You can automate it with pre-roll. It'll act just like a HyperDeck. It just can't do fill and key. You need to buy a HyperDeck HD Plus or greater to do fill and key, or one of the older model of the HyperDeck Minis, which they don't do any updates or any firmware updates for anymore. So have we decided yet? Our poll is still up. Let me go back and look at it here. What do we have here? So the poll asks the question, what Blackmagic switcher would you choose in 2024? Obviously, you know the cost difference. If you buy the ATEM Mini Pro, you can buy it for $395. If you buy the ISO, it's $495. If you buy the Extreme, you can buy it for $995. And if you buy the Extreme ISO, you can buy it for $1295. So right now, 90% of you are saying that you would buy the Extreme ISO, 5% ATEM Mini Pro ISO, 5% ATEM Mini Pro, and 0 would buy the ATEM Mini Extreme. I still think the Extreme is a great value if you don't need to record ISO tracks. And really, the only value of recording ISO tracks, this crazy lens is not doing its job. Gonna fire this puppy. Okay, we'll wrap this up. So if you want to spend the extra money, I think an Extreme at $995 is a great value. You're just not getting ISO tracks. And most people who do ISO tracks, they're just recording all the camera views and then they want to edit it later, or they want to be able to make some changes after they've done a live stream like I just did. And if they only have the program recording, then they're stuck with whatever they did. All the mistakes I made tonight will always be there. And so if you wanted to fix that, I could have recorded ISO tracks and then I could have re-edited it in DaVinci Resolve, which is a really cool feature, but you have to buy an ISO model for that. And again, there's more than just 2 ISO models because you do have the STI ISO model, and the STIs have double the STI outs over HDMI. So the ATEM Mini STI Pro ISO has 2 STI outs, and the Extreme STI model ISO version has 4 STI outs, and that is a killer feature. So we've talked about my new dolly, and I'm not talking about Ratso's girlfriend, as Joe said earlier. That was funny. So that link is in the description below. Also some Amazon associate links to the Extremes and the ATEM Mini products. So if you use those, thank you so much. It helps support the channel. So I don't know if you guys enjoyed this discussion about how we make a choice. What would you decide? I wanted to just drop this, save that. Wanted to drop this still image right now on the screen. So how do you choose between these 2 ATEMs? that is the question tonight. And I think it's going to come down to money. It's going to come down to features, how you're using it. It's going to come down to size. The one thing we didn't talk about is the ATEM Mini Pro is a much smaller device. I think I can bring this up on the screen so you can see them in comparison. Let's try this right now. Full screen out to this, and let me cut to my laptop. So there you go. Back on my lapel mic. This is the size of the ATEM Mini next to the ATEM Mini or Extreme ISO. So here's my two side by side, but you guys are only seeing these two. So this one fits in the palm of my hand. This one will fit in my hand too, but you can see how much difference there is in size. So this has, Extreme is that much wider, and the Extreme is about that much taller. And you can see all the extra inputs, the desk space it takes, and you can make that comparison right now and decide if those sizes will make a difference as well. So if size matters, you need smaller spaces, more portable kit you're gonna take on the road, then maybe an Extreme ISO is too big for you. It's definitely nice to have all the buttons and have it on the desk. But if you want something in a rack, you can get a 2ME or 1ME or a 4ME, and it's rack mountable. But again, they're all SDI inputs and outputs, and that's just not the way my studio is working. But maybe that works for you, and you can put it in a rack. If you love the buttons, you can get one of those too and buy their new device. I'm going to close with this tonight because I thought it was a great place to end up. So we'll go to Blackmagic's site here. We are going to spend an evening talking about the Blackmagic Design camera app, which is free. They now have it available for Android. You can see the advertisement there. But let me show you. This is the replay editor right here. Again, be careful if you go buy these things because you really need to establish probably a 10G network if you're going to use this. You're going to want to get the new Media Player 10G, which is like an Ultra Studio on steroids, but is designed right here for $1,000. It's designed really to make it be able to be plug and play. So you could plug that in your rack, and then it has a Thunderbolt port in the front and in the back. So you can literally have that in your rack and just plug your laptop straight into it. And then now you could be doing transfer back and forth from your live stream right from that 10G or that Thunderbolt port in the back. But Blackmagic Design not only has these rack mount 4K versions now, they have HD versions, and they have this new ATEM micro panel. So if you want to just have some buttons on your desk, now you have this wireless micro panel that runs off a battery. If I had a 2ME or a 4ME, I would for sure have one of these micro panels because I like having the buttons. The difference between an Extreme and an ATEM Mini Pro is that this has 2 rows of buttons. So it's more of a traditional controller where you have a program row on the top and a preview row on the bottom, just like you have inside the control software. So, and then it has banks of buttons to switch if you have a 4ME or a 2ME or a 1ME. And again, I'm pretty sure this works with the 4K models and the HD models. So again, it's going to be good for an update. So if you have a 2ME HD version now and you want to update to a 4ME or a 2ME 4K, this will go with you. So that's a great feature. And I think that is another value statement for the ATEM rack mount versions. I just wish they had an HDMI/SDI version. So, okay, that's a lot we talked about tonight. It is time to put a wrap on this party. We are going to end this poll at 90%, 5 and 5. And of course, Joe would respond to that statement. Yeah, I said, looking at an ATEM Mini compared to an Extreme, the ATEM Mini is so much smaller. Showed it here right on my desktop. The ATEM Mini will fit in the palm of my hand. The Extreme will still fit in my hand, but it's about that much longer, and it's that much taller. And again, it actually sits up off the ground. One of the cool things, though, about the new HyperDeck shuttle is it's designed to sit right next to an Extreme or Extreme ISO or the SDI model, and it fits right next to it. Looks perfect. It's the same build, the same size, and then you have that really cool big shuttle knob on it. You have teleprompter possibilities. I talked about the shuttle in my live stream last week, so go check that out. Again, my focus is off. Ever since I did that lens demo last week, it's messed up this camera, and it's not keeping focus on me. Do I have eye focus off here? Yeah, it looks like the auto eye focus is off, and I didn't turn it off. Somehow that got reset. No, it's on, but the little icon, yeah, it's staying with my eyes. I don't know why this lens, I guess it was stuck. So that's it for me tonight. That's why we were talking about size there, Joe. The ATEM Mini is smaller, but still can get the job done. It pleases many partners. Cute. Thank you, Joe, for your commentary. Hopefully YouTube won't flag you for this size matters talk. Yeah, I hope so too. But Blackmagic Design has ATEMs for really concise, small, portable rigs, and they have the rack mount models. If you want to do rack mount it, you even have a tray you can put screw your HyperDecks into and have them on a tray in a rack. You have the ability to have less desktop space taken up with the layout of the ATEM Mini lines, the Pro, the ATEM Mini Pro ISO, and the SDI model. The Extremes definitely are going to need more space on your desk, and I have two here side by side on my desk, and it takes up quite a bit of space, but pushing them to the back, still have plenty of room in the front of them for a keyboard. In front of that is an ATEM Mini Pro, and then my Extremes. And my desk is only 2.5 feet deep, so I have plenty of room in my studio. So I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion of how you choose in 2024 between the ATEM Mini Pro ISO and the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. I hope you guys will hit the like button tonight so this will get out there in the YouTube algorithm if you haven't already hit like. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. And thank you guys so much for joining me in tonight's live stream. I am Keith. This is Life Journey Productions. I hope to see you guys very soon in the next video. Good night.